and record this just in case something intelligent is said, although no promises made on that one. Okay, so I get this all the time. I see it in the trends. I see everything that's going on. Robert, I've got listings, but they're sitting. I'm having a hard time getting my listings into escrow. I'm having a hard time getting buyer showings. I'm having a hard time getting offers. I'm having a hard time getting anything on some of my listings. What do I do? Okay, well, we could talk about price, but then you say, I don't want to talk about price anymore. Damn it. I've done a price reduction. Okay. I don't want to go back to a price reduction. What else can I do? Okay. I hear you and I see it. All right. Listings are up as a company. We have 854 active listings right now. Obviously, listings are up all across the board. Days on market up a little bit. So I see it and I hear it. So what I want to cover today is rather than just, here's some ideas. No. Let's really dive into it. Let's really dive into listings on how we're going to get them sold. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to go through the process. We're going to start at the beginning. And what I mean by that, we're going to start at the beginning on how to get your listing sold from the get-go. How do we set that up? Number one. So we're going to go through that process. Then we're going to go through the process of setting yourself up for price reduction conversations, because you don't want to just throw a price reduction conversation out of the blue, right? You're going to set yourself up for that price reduction conversation. Then we're going to go through, now it's time to have that price reduction conversation. What should we be doing? What should we be saying? All those fun things. And then we're going to go through the final step, which is, hey, I've done the price reduction. I'm still not getting showings. What else can I do? So we're going to cover all of that today. So hopefully when you walk away from here, you've got a few little nuggets that you're like, hey, this might work. This gives me some ideas. This gives me a plan. Maybe it's something you haven't heard before, haven't thought about. That would be great. Maybe it's something you have heard before, but I'm coming at it from a different angle. Matt, that would be great too. Or maybe it's something you've heard over and over and over again, but this time it's going to finally click as a reminder to say, you know what? I got to start doing that. Okay. I don't know, but we're going to cover a lot of different things here. And hopefully one of them is something that really connects with you. So really good stuff. All right. I'm going to share my screen first of all, and then we are going to get started. So let me do this. You're going to be so proud of me. I even put together like a little PowerPoint about this, which is, a lot of you know, that's not really my strong suit, but look at this. Huh? Look at me. I am technology all through and through. Boy, I tell you, you social media people better watch out. All right. Getting your listing sold. C21 Masters motto, one team, one mission, real estate excellence. All right. So let's begin. First of all, you're going to set your listing up to sell. Set your listing up to sell. So what do I mean set your listing up to sell? Well, very first thing, dive deeper into the motivation. Folks, the very first bullet point on here is so crucial to getting your listing sold. Let me ask you something. Is this a good market for the people that say, hey, if I could get my price, I'll sell it? Is it a good market for those people right now?
No.
No, it's really not. Okay. If I could get my price, I'll sell it. It's not that type of a marketplace. There are marketplaces like that. Who here was in real estate in 2021? Okay. All right. You all remember the listing presentation script in 2021? How much do you want for your house? Great, sign here. That was the listing presentation script in 2021. It was wild times. All right. But that's not the way it goes anymore. So a lot of times I'm talking to agents about their listings that have been on the market for a while. And what's my very first question? Why are they selling? What's their motivation? And some of you have heard me go through this with you, and you get a little bit annoyed when you do this. I think, and I instantly go, stop. Well, why am I stopping? You already don't know the motivation, because you're saying, I think they, no, stop. You don't know the motivation, clearly. Because if you knew the motivation, it wouldn't be, I think this is what they're trying to do. It's, this is what they're trying to do. This is why they're selling. So you got to start right at the get-go to set your listing up to sell is know their motivation. Why are they really selling this house? What's the plan of action? because if they don't have it, getting this listing to sell is going to be really tough. And certainly when it gets to coming to price reductions, you have no chance. So some of these listings are sitting or simply because they're just not going to sell. It's just not the seller's opportunity right now to do that. So dive deeper into the motivation. What do I mean by dive deeper into the motivation? Seller says, we're thinking about selling our house. Oh, why are you thinking about selling? We want something bigger. And then you just, all right, let's go. Here's your price. Here's the comps. Here's my commission. And you think, Robert, no, they're motivated. They said they want a bigger house. Well, who doesn't? That'd be like the equivalent of someone saying, I'd love to live by the beach. Well, who doesn't want to live by the beach? That doesn't mean it's a motivation to live by the beach. It's just who doesn't. So dive deeper. So what I want everyone to do is ask that one additional question. So write this down. If you don't know how to ask that one additional question, just write this down. Tell me more about that. Dive deeper into the motivation. Just simply ask, tell me more about that. Hey, we're thinking about moving. Why? We want a bigger house. Tell me more about that. We're thinking about moving. Why? We want to downsize. Tell me more about that. We're thinking about moving. Why? Oh, we're going to move out to Riverside. Tell me more about that. If you just simply say, tell me more about that, it opens them up and then you find their true motivation. So let me give you an example. They say, well, we want a bigger house. And you say, tell me more about that. Well, the house we live in is fine now. I mean, we're going to stay in the same city, same school district, but it'd be nice to have a little bit more of a backyard. Is that a super motivated seller?
Nope.
No. Are you going to get price reductions on that seller?
Nope.
No, not a chance in hell. Now let's do this. We're moving because we want a bigger house. Well, tell me more about that. Well, we're in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house right now. It's my spouse and I, and we have 2 boys. They're twins. They share a room. But here's the thing. They're 12 years old, and I don't know what they're drinking, but they're both already 6 foot, 215 pounds. They're going to be centers. They're going to be linebackers. They're destroying the house. Is that person motivated to sell that house?
Yes.
Yes. So now you have a real reason as to, okay, this is a legit seller. There's real motivation. They're going to kill each other if they don't get into a bigger house. Okay. You got to dive deeper into that motivation. Okay. That's step number 1. All right. Number 2, price it correctly. Price it correctly. Pricing property is so important in today's world. Okay. You got to price it correctly from the get-go instead of pricing it and then, trying to figure it out later. So get out there and preview property. Know what homes are selling for. Why is this house worth 1.6 million? Okay. Well, I don't know if I don't go see it. Why is this house worth 1.6 and this one's only worth 1.2 if they're in the same general area? Well, I don't know. Go see it because the pictures look the same. The neighborhood's roughly the same. Get out there and see the homes because there's a reason one is listed at 1.6 and one's listed at 1.2. And if your house is closer to 1.2, but they say we want 1.6, guess what? You're stuck. So get out there and see the properties. Know what is really going on in the neighborhoods. Let me tell you something. Here's one of the reasons your listing isn't selling is you're letting the seller dictate the price. Well, you're letting the seller dictate the price because you don't have enough evidence to support your price. So let me ask you this. So you go do a listing presentation and you go through the comps and you go to the seller, Mr. and Mr. Seller, have you seen this house? And they say no. And you go, well, neither have I. So, who's in control on this listing presentation right now when it comes to price?
Seller is.
Seller's in total control right now. But now let's say you do the listing presentation and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, have you seen this house? And they say no. And then you say, well, I've been inside this house. And this house is a little bit better than yours. Let me tell you why. Who's in control of pricing the house right now?
You, of course.
The agent. But if you don't go out and see properties, you can't use that line, can you? Right? So get out there, preview property. Know the stats and the trends. If you can see that days on market is increasing, then show that to the seller. Print out the info sparks, print out something from the MLS, print out some statistics, some trends to show the seller. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look at this. Compared to this time last year, days on market is up whatever. Okay. Homes are up only 1 point whatever percent in terms of price. Know the stats and trends, show it to the seller. Are there some sellers that still think it's a incredible seller's market right now? Are there still sellers that feel that way?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, unless you give them a reason to think otherwise, they're going to look at you and go, well, why are we listing it this way? I want to list it here. So you need to know the stats and the trends and then be able to bring that to the seller. But here's what I want you to write down underneath: know the stats and the trends. Show them, not verbalize them. Show them, not verbalize them. Because when you verbalize it, they don't believe it as much. Why don't clients believe us as much when we verbalize things? What is the main reason?
They think you're just interested in the commission.
That's it. They know we're getting paid. Every client knows that you don't get paid unless they buy or sell the house. So when you just verbalize stuff, they're going, well, how do I know you're not just saying that so you can get a commission check? So print the stats out, bring your laptops if you have to, show them the stats, show them the trends. If days on market are increasing, guess what? We have to be more aggressive on price. If the price per square foot is not going up very much, guess what? We have to be more aggressive on price. Why don't you look at all the red arrows and green arrows and say, hey, do you see all these red arrows? Those are price reductions. We need to be more aggressive on price. You know the stats and the trends, you relay that to the seller. Now the seller understands it, why they need to price it correctly. Now you're setting yourself up to sell right away. Third thing I wrote down here, price it correctly. Price it under. Price it under. So here's what I mean. If you really believe that the home is worth $880,000 and you think, I think fair market $880,000, price it lower than that. Go to 860. 865, go to 850, go lower than that. Because if you think it's 880 is fair, well, it's fair at this time of day, this day of the week. But if the days on market is going longer and there's more price reductions and price growth is slowing down, your 880 is you're going up against a slower market. So now you're chasing the market down because you've priced it at its max. You don't want to price it at its max fair market value when you're going to be chasing the market down. You want to price it under so that way you're chasing the market correctly and you're getting showings on the property. So price it under, get more people into the property. All right. Now the seller says, but I don't want to give my property away. Okay, well, guess what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? The listing price is simply the marketing price. Doesn't have to be the sales price. The listing price is simply the marketing price. Doesn't have to be the sale price. You want 880 for this house? Guess what? If we price it at 880 based on these stats and these trends, we're probably going to get 870. But if we price it at 860 and we get multiple offers, you might actually have a legit shot at getting 880. Because we need people to see the house. We need multiple offers. So we got to price it under. We got to price it aggressive. Okay? Does anyone here ever been to an auction or know kind of how an auction works, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
have.
So when they're at an auction, do they start the auction with a high price and try to bid the price down, or do they start at a really low price and bid the price up?
Low price.
Low price.
Yeah, they start low to bid the price up. Well, there's no reason you can't have the same type of mentality here. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's be auction style. Let's start low, bid the price up instead of start high and bid the price down, right? Price it a little bit under. I wrote down here on price it correctly. It baffles me why people don't train pricing property this way is look at the expireds. Are there more or less expireds in the market compared to this time last year?
More.
More. There's more expireds. Well, how do you price it correctly? Look at the expireds. We always look at active pendings close, active pendings close. That's great. What expired? Because now if I look at a comp and I see that expireds are up, so I'm going to have comps in the expired range, and I see that, hey, this is a fair comp. It expired at 1.4 million. You're asking for 1.42. Clearly, that's not going to work. The proof is right here. There's no reason for us to sell it here. It didn't sell at that price. So look at the expires to give yourself an actual bracket, so that you're going to your seller saying, Mr. Seller, there's no reason for us to start at that price. This is proof it's not going to sell. Okay. I don't want to come back. We got to at least give me some hope. We got to at least get hope that's going to sell. It's not going to sell. You got the expired. But here's the thing. If it expired at 1.4, don't go, okay, well, it expired at 1.4, so we'll list it at 1.39. It's not 1.4. Like, what are you doing? Right? Give yourself some room. If it expired at 1.4, give yourself some, hey, let's do 1.35, at max. Like we got to give ourselves some room here because it expired at 1.4. Let's not use that as our max. No. But now we know what can't sell. Now we're pricing it correctly. Okay. And so questions on any of that on the pricing part, because that was a lot, but that's really important. All right, great. Last couple things on set it up to sell. Do everything on your plan of action. So everybody should have a listing plan of action, and they should be providing that to the seller at the listing presentation. Now, if you're going, I don't have a listing plan of action. First, then you could get one from Mike Ferry. You could get one from Century 21. We have one that we created years ago just to give people some ideas. I'm sure you can find some online. There's all kinds of listing plans of action. What that is, it's a specific, not vague, specific step-by-steps on what you're going to do to get a home sold. Well, here's what's really interesting. I'll bet a lot of you, and this is not a shot at you, it's just reality. I'll bet a lot of you don't do all the steps in that plan of action that you send out. Okay. I'll bet you don't. Does anyone want to guess how I know? Because for those of you that have the Mike Ferry plan of action, you still have in there that you're going to fax a feature sheet to the top whatever number of agents in town. Okay, show of hands. How many of you have faxed a feature sheet in the last 25 years? Right? And I'm using that as an example, but the Century 21 one has, hey, you're going to post it on these certain social media things. And I'm like, I'll bet you're not doing all on some of those either, right? So why don't you do everything on your plan of action? Set it up to actually sell. All right. I wrote down here next, be the best looking listing online. We're setting it up to sell at the beginning. Be the best looking listing online. Here's what I mean by that. Do buyers search online first or in person first?
Online.
They search online, right? Everybody knows that. Okay. Do you think buyers who are searching online are dedicating dedicating distraction-free time on a big screen to really focus on all the listings that are in their area that agents are sending them to pick the right one? Do you think that's what they're doing, or are they multitasking while they're doing it?
Multitasking.
They're multitasking. Here's what a buyer does when they're searching for homes. They got this little tiny phone, okay, screen's this big, and they're scrolling, and all they have enough time for is to look at pictures, videos, price. Pictures, videos, price. That's all they have. They're not reading all the descriptions. They're not doing all these other things. They're looking at pictures, videos, price. Well, guess what? So if your listing looks like crap online, you're getting this. You're not getting any looks from these buyers. But if your listing has beautiful photos, an attractive price, has some videos, has like some Matterport 3D, guess what? Now that buyer has stopped and is engaged in your listing. Now you might get some showings. You have to be at a minimum equal to the comps in your marketplace in terms of how well you look online. But reality is it should be better. Professional photos should be a no-brainer. Okay. I mean, have you all seen the listing photos where you can see the agent's reflection in the mirror, taking the photo with their phone? We've all seen those, right? You know, we've seen those photos, or ones where like somehow the picture's upside down, or it's blurry, and you're going, Robert, my listing's not selling. And I'm going, I'm aware. I figured that part out. Okay. So get some professional photos, have videos done, have a Matterport 3D done, have some drone stuff. Like, be just the best looking listing online. So now you're the best looking listing. It's priced correctly. Now you're getting showings. Showings equals offers. Offers equals sales. But you got to start at the beginning and be the best looking listing online. Hey, here's another tip though. What's the other benefit to having a really beautiful, the best looking listing online? What's the other benefit?
They'll drive by or go to your open.
Sure. What's the other benefit?
Views.
Views, right? But we're getting closer. Views, but
Clicks.
for what? What am I
They'll,
getting out of that? I'm marketing myself for future business.
Calls from.
I'm marketing calls, right? But I'm marketing myself for future business. You take a listing, you say, oh, I'm going to go door knock the neighborhood, just listed, just sold. I promise you the neighbors have already looked at that listing online. So if you have crappy photos, you've got a terrible description, no videos, and they're going, hey, I just listed a property. You know what they're thinking? Yeah, and I don't know why the hell they listed with you. Don't even bother trying to talk to me, right? But yet, if you have this gorgeous looking listing online, all the neighbors have seen it, you go talk to them, they're going, yeah, no, it looks fantastic. Now I'm setting myself up for more business. Okay. What if I send that out to my database, who's my best source, and I send them out this terrible looking listing online? They're going, why would I refer you any business? But they see this beautiful listing online. They're going, that's why we send them to Robert. Right. So it's not just to get that listing sold, right? Andrea even said, yeah, your SOI knows you're active in real estate. It's not just getting that listing sold. I'm getting it for future business as well. All right. I wrote down here the last part. It set it up to sell. Stop being okay with price reductions. Stop being okay with price reductions. We take too many listings with the mentality of, I'll just reduce the price. Okay. We need to go in with the mentality. It's not, you can't just be okay with price reductions. Okay. Go in with the mentality of, I'm going to get this listing sold. I'm going to prove why this is the price, because I don't want to have to do a price reduction, because price reductions hurt my brand. They hurt my brand. Okay. If I have to go to this seller and ask for price reduction after price reduction after price reduction, what are the chances I'm ever going to get a referral from that seller? Probably never. Okay. And I'm going to go market to the neighborhood. Hey, I just sold your neighbor's house. And they're going, yeah, for, $100,000 less than what you listed it for. Thanks for ruining my home value. Now, I know it's not your fault, right? I'm not blaming you that it's not like you ruined their home value, but this is what consumers think. They think you couldn't get the whole house sold. They ended up giving it away because you reduced the price. You couldn't sell it. Right? Your database is going, yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's all that you couldn't list. I referred you, John. You couldn't list his house. Why would I work with you? They hurt your brand. And then people go online and advertise it. Like this giant social media ad. Price reduction, lower price. And I'm like, why are you broadcasting that to the world in bold letters, all like red colors, showcasing that, hey, world, guess what? I can't sell this house. I don't, but I understand, like, hey, well, I got to try to sell it. But you just have to go back to the beginning. Stop being okay with price reductions. It's not okay. You're hurting your brand when you do that. So instead, set it up to sell with all the steps we had above that. And if they're not motivated, just walk away from the damn thing. Okay? Just walk away. All right, questions on setting it up to sell before we move on to the next step. All right, beautiful. All right, so now we're going to set ourselves up for price reductions. Set ourselves up for price reductions. So we're not just going to show up and have a price reduction conversation. We're going to set ourselves up for that price reduction conversation so it's easier to have and more efficient. So the first thing I wrote down here is have a conversation about price reductions at the listing appointment if you're going to take an overpriced listing. Okay, have that conversation at the listing appointment. You know it's overpriced. The seller says, no, I wanna start here. Let's see how it goes. And you say, you know what, I'm still gonna take this listing. Okay, have that conversation there. Meaning that, and there's a script. I'm gonna share a script here, the Tim Rowan script, where he says, hey, look, there's 4 things that are gonna happen after I take this listing. He walked through it. I'll share it with you. But essentially, you're gonna have that conversation. Say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look it. Here's the deal. If we get showings, right, but no offers, we're a little overpriced. If we get no showings, no offers, we're overpriced. Okay. If that's the case, we then need to lower the price. Can we agree to that in the next 2 weeks? Right? Have that conversation now that you are going to lower the price in 2 weeks if you don't have any offers. And some of you are thinking, well, 2 weeks might be enough. Okay, fine. It's your time. It's your money. I don't give a damn what you do. I'm just trying to help you out. Right? My time is worth a lot of money. So the longer I let this listing sit and not do a price reduction, I'm costing myself a fortune. One of the reasons we also don't have a problem doing price reductions, we don't value our own time. It's no big deal. Hell with that. It is a big deal to me. My time's worth a lot of money. So if I'm going on a listing presentation and I'm taking an overpriced listing, which I wouldn't, but if I was, I would say, we got 2 weeks. No, if we don't have any offers in 2 weeks, we're lowering the price of this. And if they have a problem with that, walk away. Clearly, they're not that motivated. But have that conversation up front. All right, I wrote down, track all your activities. This is where it's all about being specific, not vague, meaning that track how many calls, how many just listed calls have you made? How many people have you spoken to doing just listed calls or door knocks? How many people did you send this to in your database? How many people came through the open houses? How many views did you get on your social media post? You can track all that stuff. If you did a boost, right, you can track how many views it got. Track all of these activities because you want to be able to show the seller all the things that you're doing. Not only to showcase that you're working so they don't fire you, but then you're going to see when we go through the price reduction scripts, you're going to lay this all out for the seller so they can see the numbers, the staggering numbers that you've done in terms of marketing for this listing that have resulted in no offers. But you can only do it tracking. So here's what I mean. Telling someone that says, hey, well, one of the things I've done, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is I've called the neighbors to let them know the listing was on the market. That's a very vague statement. That could be one neighbor. Instead of saying, what's better is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, so I actually called 100 neighbors around your property, and I either spoke to all of them or left all of them a voicemail, letting them know this house was for sale and asking them who they might know that could buy it. Instead of just saying, oh, well, we did 2 open houses. It's, hey, we did 2 open houses. Between those 2 open houses, we had 37 potential buyers come through those. I posted it on social media. No. I posted on social media. And when I boosted that post, we ended up with 786 views on it, right? Track your activities, but be very specific. Communicate. Okay, NAR, every single year, the number one complaint that NAR gets from consumers is what?
No communication.
No or lack of communication from their real estate agent. Okay, well, guess what? There's typically no complaints if the listing sells in 3 days, right? Because there's not much to communicate. The complaints come is my listing was on the market for a month, 2 months, and I didn't know what was going on. So set yourself up for price reductions. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Let them know the activities. Let them know the feedback. Every single person that sees this property, whether it's an agent or a buyer, get their feedback and then deliver that feedback. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, so we had 12 people come through. There was 8 of them were buyers. 4 of them were just agents previewing the property. Of the 12 people that came through, I asked all of them for some feedback. I got 7 of them to give me some feedback. Here's what the 7 of them said. Boom, 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 boom. I'm letting them know exactly what's going on. Okay. I talked to all your neighbors. Here's how those conversations went. I sent it out to my database. Here's some of the stuff I got, like communicate, communicate, communicate on everything that you're doing. Now, I wrote down here, ask the 2 communication questions up front. If you want to solve all of your communication complaint problems and get 5-star ratings on everything you do, you're going to ask 2 questions to a seller. Actually, this works for buyers too, but ask 2 questions once you sign the listing agreement. Okay. Question 1, how often would you like me to communicate with you? Daily, every other day, right? Only when major events, only when I have updates. How often do you want me to communicate with you? That's number 1. Question number 2, what method of communication do you prefer? Phone calls, emails, text messages, airplanes flying by with notes. Which one do you prefer? This solves all your communication complaints, those 2 questions, as long as you then follow that. Because, you know, the old rule was, oh, well, you update your sellers every week on your activities. Okay. If you went on a listing appointment today, 2025, in the year 2025, and you told the seller, I will contact you once a week, how is that seller going to respond?
They're gonna love it.
They are not going to love it.
Oh,
They are not going to love it. They are going to
They
go,
say,
what
I
do you
want
mean
to hear
once a
more.
week? What do you mean once a week? That's way too long. I want this house sold in a week. And that is too long. But now some of them might want every day. But if they say, oh, I want a communication every day, great. We'll communicate every day. What method? Text message. Great. Then send text messages. They say phone calls, do phone calls, right? But communicate, communicate, communicate. All right. Set up golden ruler. If you're at Century 21 and you don't know what golden ruler is, that's not good. But golden ruler is amazing. It literally tracks all the online activity your listing has gotten. So in a nice report, Kiana and I did a class on this last week, right? So if you haven't set that up, set it up. But go to 21 Online, go to golden ruler, all of your listings, it has a nice report, how many views the listing's gotten online. And you can set it up where your seller gets this every week. You can set it up and send it to them whenever you want, but make sure they're getting that so they see the views. It's staggering. Some of you might think, well, what do they get? 50, 60 views? No, it's like thousands of views in this really nice report. So make sure you're setting up golden ruler. And then I wrote down, set yourself up for price reductions. Call them every Friday. This is what you can do once a week. Is call them every Friday and say, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, remember that listing plan of action I gave you at the listing appointment? Yep, pull that out. I want you to cross off number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here's what I did on those. I want you to, and then just go through it. Have them cross off each item on that list so they know that you're working and that you're doing all the things on your plan of action. Okay? We're setting ourselves up for that price reduction conversation.
Robert, so how often do you, or is it up to the seller to let us know how often we give them an update?
Yeah, that's why I'm
Okay.
asking those 2 questions. How often do you want me to communicate with you? You know what? Just every couple days is fine. Okay, cool. What method would you prefer? Phone calls. Great, I'll call you. Okay, call them every couple days. They might say, just whenever you have an update. Okay, well, whenever I have an update, I'll call you. Or what method do you prefer? Just send me a text. Send them a text whenever I have an update. But if they say, I want to know every day what's going on, what method do you prefer? I prefer a phone call. I'm calling them every day, even if I don't have anything to update. Hey, I just want to let you know, nothing really to report today, but just giving you a call to let you know. Let them decide. All right.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, now it's price reduction time. Now we've gone through setting up the price reductions, all the things to help us get set up. Now it's price reduction time. So let's talk about price reduction. So first of all, I'm going to post in the chat as soon as I'm done the price reduction scripts. You have a couple different scripts in there. You know, there's your basic Mike Ferry script, but then there's another script that I put together that where you really outline all the activities we talked about in that previous slide. You're going to give that script. And here's kind of how that would go. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want to go over all the marketing that's been done on this property. You ready? Ready. Okay. As you can see from this golden ruler report, right? Because you got to give them that report. We've had 2,000 views online on your listing. Okay. On top of that, I sent this out to my entire database, which was 300 people. It also went out to all the agents in my company, which is the largest Century 21 in the state of California. That's about 1,200 agents. I reached out to 100 of your neighbors and I left them a voicemail or talked to all of them about your listing to see if they had a buyer. Between the open houses, we had 35 potential buyers come through those open houses, which means Mr. and Mrs. Seller, in the last month, we've had roughly 3,500 eyes and ears on this listing. So the marketing has worked. Would you agree? I would agree. That's great. However, despite 3,500 eyes and ears on this property, we have no offers. Now, since we agree that the marketing is working, but we don't have any offers, is it fair to assume we might be slightly overpriced? Yeah, that's fair. Great. Right now, that's a much better price reduction conversation because how can they argue with me? Up to that point, I've tracked all the activities. I've given them all the updates. I've shown them all the reports. Now I'm just giving them the summary and adding all the eyes and ears that have seen this property. How can they possibly argue with you at that point? How could they hear that 3,500 eyes and ears on this property and go, yeah, no, I think the price is fine? That's not going to happen. And if it does, please give them back the listing. All right. But I'll share that script in the chat box when we're done. But utilize that script. I wrote down here next, right? A buyer agent commission is probably not going to help you. Meaning that if you're already cooperating with buyers agents and you say, we'll cooperate more, that's not going to solve your problem. Who finds homes? Buyers or agents? For the most part, let's be honest. Who finds homes to go buy? The buyer or the agent?
Buyer.
The buyer. Okay. Some of you might find homes or do things like that, but it's the buyer. So the buyer's not worried about the damn buyer agent commission. So if you're already cooperating with buyers agents saying, hey, we'll cooperate even more, not going to make a difference in this world. Now, if you're not cooperating, you're letting agents know, hey, no, the buyer has to pay you. Okay, maybe offering a commission might help, but going to a price reduction conversation saying, oh, we should just raise the buyer agent commission. I'm not going to do a damn thing. Stop that. All right. All right. The 5% rule, the 10% rule. So this is a rule of thumb we've had for years. Okay, you can use this as a template. You can use it exactly, but just kind of keep this in mind. Here's the rule we've always had. If your listing has no showings and therefore no offers, you're somewhere between 6 to 10% overpriced, probably closer to 10. If you have no showings, therefore no offers, you're probably 10% overpriced, definitely within that 6 to 10% range. If you have showings, so you've gotten some showings, but you have no offers, you're probably 3 to 5% overpriced, but probably closer to 5. So no showings, therefore no offers. You're somewhere in that 6 to 10% range overpriced, but closer to 10. If you have showings but no offers, you're somewhere in that 3 to 5%. So think about those numbers when you start asking for price reductions, which leads me to my next point. Stop doing minor price reductions. $10,000 is not the reason your $900,000 home is not selling. Meaning that you have a $900,000 listing, you go, we're going to do a price reduction. We're going to do $10,000 down to $890. Thank you. We've now wasted each other's time for another couple weeks. Okay. It's not 10,000. Buyers aren't going, boy, I'm willing to spend 890, but 900. No, that's absolutely not. I'm not even going to to see it. Like, ask for a real price reduction. Let's get the damn thing sold. If you're $900,000 listing and you're not getting any offers, then and you have showings but no offers, well, 5% is 45,000. You need to ask for at least a $45,000 price reduction. If you have no showings, you need to ask for a $90,000 price reduction. These $10,000, $15,000, these little, they're not doing anything. Right? Go for a real price reduction. Let's get some eyes and ears on this property. Let's get some people to come see it. Stop chasing the market. All right? Get a real price reduction. All right. Okay. Questions up to this point. We've covered, because there's one more section, but we've covered set your listing up to sell from the beginning. We've covered setting yourself up for the price reduction conversations. Now we're having the price reduction conversations. Anything, questions up to this point?
Robert, I just want to confirm I heard right. The 5 and 10% rule. The 10%, if there's no showing, no offers, nothing. That's 10%.
Right.
Reduction. With the 5% rule is if there's some showing but no offers at all, that's the 5% reduction. Okay.
Right. Because at least you've got some people coming to see it.
Right.
Which means you're closer. You're just still a little bit over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I usually share that when I go on a listing appointment, I let them know up front that we need to be really careful about the pricing and just so you know, FYI, and I go over this with them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, again, that Gilda's right. I would have this. This is all part of conversations you can have up front when they want to list it high. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Here's the deal. Yeah, absolutely.
Robert, can we
Absolutely.
get a copy of this?
Yep.
Okay,
And then as soon as I'm done, I'm going to post some of these scripts in the chat box as well that
awesome.
I've been talking about.
Yeah. Hi, Robert. This is Sudha.
Hi.
I have a question that I am going to have a listing soon, but the seller wants to keep the tenant. Do you have any suggestion what
For
to
the if they want to keep the tenant?
They want to keep the tenant. They said because the tenant has been living there from 12 years and this is a Section 8 people.
Well, I mean, first thing you have to do is you have to talk to the tenant, make sure the tenant's going to cooperate
Okay.
with the listing, with the showings, things along those lines. Because if
Okay.
they're not going to cooperate, I would just get the hell out of it.
Okay.
Because it's going to be a disaster. But if the tenant's willing to cooperate, then I would just say, hey, look, I don't want to make your life difficult. So why don't we do this rather than doing private showings and things like that? I'd like to just set up 2 open houses. I'd like to do this Saturday from 12 to 3 and schedule one for next Saturday from 12 to 3 in case we don't get any offers this Saturday. So all I need you to do, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, is Saturday from those time frames, make sure the house is clean. Please exit the premises, and that's it. So that way their life is easy. It's not too much of a problem for them. You could try to do it that way, and as long as they're willing to cooperate, you could try it that way. As far as showing the property, now pricing's a different story because now you have to price it according to what's the cash flow going to be.
Right.
So that's a different story when it comes to pricing.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, last section here. So, Robert, I've done the price reductions. I don't want to do another price reduction. What else can I do? You got it. I got you covered. All right, so here's some other ideas on trying to get your listing sold without asking for another price reduction. Upgrade your listing online. If your listing's already not the best looking listing online, make it the best looking listing online. We talked about that. Contact investors. So investor purchases are up across the whole state, every county, doesn't matter what county you're in, investor purchases are up. So get a list of absentee owners because they already own one investment property. It's a lot easier to get one investor to buy a second property than to get someone who has 0 to buy one. So just get a list of investors. Now, here's the strategy. First of all, the listing you have, find out what it would rent for. Okay, get an estimate. Go to our lending team, 21st Century Lending, and say, what would somebody have to put down in order for their total payment property taxes, insurance, principal and interest to equal this rental amount. Okay, so they break even and they say they have to put down this much money. Okay, so now they say $200,000. So now your pitch is you call these investors, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Investors, I have this great opportunity for you for literally only $200,000 down. This property would cash flow, or this property would break even. Anything more than that would cash flow. You interested? Right? So now I'm actually giving them the whole breakdown so they don't have to think about it. Okay, because they might go, oh, I have the 200, or they might go, I don't have 200. Then we're out of the game already. All right, but get out to investors. Where are the buyers coming from? So do some research to find out where are buyers coming from that buy in your area. You can go online to figure this out. Title companies can help you figure this out, or in Golden Ruler again, as Kiana did such a great job of this last week or 2 weeks ago, or whenever we did it. In Golden Ruler, you can see the people that are viewing the property. Where are they viewing it from? Where's the ping coming from? So once you find out where buyers are coming from that move into the area, do some target marketing via social media, Google ads, maybe it's some prospecting to that area to find a buyer. This actually just worked. We had this happen. We had someone that had a listing. They found out where buyers come from that move into the area. They did some target marketing to that area and they found a buyer. I kid you not, true story, right? Because sometimes a lot of times the buyer's not the neighbor. They're coming from a city over, sometimes a county over, sometimes different things. So find out where the buyers are coming from and do some marketing. All right. And then prospect buyers and agents that saw the listing prior to the price reduction. So this is reverse prospecting. So if you lower the price, reach out to the buyers and agents that saw the property and promote the new price. Maybe the buyer was interested, but now they just weren't interested in the price. Now they're interested in the price. So make sure you're selling that. I'm sorry, I skipped over here. Get an appraisal done. If you want to know, okay, here's what hey, my home, I'm telling you, Robert, it's priced right. It's priced right. Okay. All right. Well, get an appraisal done and let's see. Now you get an appraisal done. If the appraisal, whatever price the appraisal comes in at, now you go to the seller and let's say you're listing it for 1.5 million. The appraisal comes back at 1.5 million. Great. Guess what? Now use that as a marketing tool. We have an appraisal. It's at 1.5 million, right? Now you can help get it sold. But if you're trying to sell it for 1.5 million and the appraisal comes back at 1.3, well, guess what? Now you've got a realistic price on this house. You go back to the seller. What do you want to do? All right, so get an appraisal done. I'm sorry, we skipped that one. So we already did prospect. Coach the buyer's agents. Okay, this is a biggie. I've talked about this a lot recently, and this is helping. Coach the buyer's agents. In today's world, when buyers are going to see a property, can you really trick a buyer today in today's world?
No.
You can't trick a buyer.
No.
They have access to everything. They have access to pictures, Google Street View, property description, sales history. They have access to comps, estimated value, school district ratings, crime rating. They have access to everything, which means if a buyer gets off their butt to go drive to that house and see it, they are interested in that house. There's no way in the antisocial world we live in today that people are getting off their couch to go into a stranger's house if they're not interested in it. Okay. So the buyer is interested, which means that when you follow up with the buyer's agent and they say, oh, no, they're not interested. Don't just go, okay, no. Hold on, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer's agent. Hold on. Let's think about this for a second. The buyer already knew all the stuff about this house. They had access to everything, which means that they're interested in the house. You and I both know that. The thing they're not interested in is the price. Is that right? Right. Okay. So here's what I want you to do, buyer's agent. Go to your buyer, ask them what price do they think is fair, and then write up an offer based on that price. And they're going to say, well, do you think your seller would take it? And you're going to say, I don't know. Stop negotiating. Get your buyer in the game by writing up the offer. I'll get my seller in the game by presenting the offer, and let's see what we can make happen. But coach the buyer's agents. Too many buyer's agents are just going, oh, all right, well, they're not interested. No, that's not it. They had access to everything. It's a price thing. So coach them up. coach them up on it. Okay. Or the last thing I wrote down here, offer to help the buyer pay down the interest rate, right? So they can do a 2-1 buy down. And Blake, who's our director of lending, is
one
actually
more
going to do a
paper.
class on this in a few weeks. But essentially, the buyer, you as a seller, they can offer to pay down the interest rate. A rough calculation is 2% of the purchase price. Okay, it's actually a little bit less, but say 2%. So if you're selling it for $700,000, it would cost them the seller $14,000. But by doing that, the buyer could take that money and get a 2% lower interest rate for the first year, 1% lower rate for the second year before it goes back to the regular interest rate the third year. So the buyer's going to save a ton of money, way more money than just a lender credit towards closing cost. The seller's paying $14,000 or what, just 2%. I'm using $14,000 as that example. 2%. It's a win for everybody. And then from the buyer's perspective, if interest rates go down in the next 2 years, they could just refi down to the lower rate and keep that lower rate anyways. But for the first 2 years, they have that low rate. So there's an option for them as well to make it more incentivized for the buyer. All right, questions on what else you can do to try to get your listing sold other than just the price reduction? All right. All right. Last thing, always remember, no matter how many listings you have and no matter how many of them are not selling, the answer is to take more listings. So we just went through this entire process of how do I get my listing sold? But I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that the answer is always to take more listings. So Robert, I've got 5 listings. None of them are selling. Great. What about number 6? Okay. The more listings you have, the better chance some of them are going to sell. On top of that, we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. We can all make predictions, but anyone who can predict interest rates is a liar, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But let's say interest rates did go down like 0.5%. Well, that would bring a lot more buyers to the marketplace. You have all these listings. Guess what? You're going to have a lot of escrows really fast. So don't let the fact that if some of these listings aren't selling steer you away from taking more listings. Can we get a class on how to get listings? Yep, I do that all the time. All right. Questions on what we went over today?
Hey, Robert, good afternoon. Could you repeat the 2-1 buy down where it costs buyer way less money?
Yeah. So the way a 2-1 buy down works is a seller could offer to give to help a buyer get a 2-1 buy down, meaning that you take essentially you take 2% of the purchase price. So if it's $1 million, the purchase price, it's going to cost the seller $20,000. They give that to the buyer. The buyer can use that to get a 2-1 buy down on their interest rate. So let's say, meaning that let's say their rate is 6.75. For the first year, the first 12 months, they would actually be paying an interest rate of 4.75. And then the second year, they'd be paying 5.75. And it wouldn't be until the third year that they actually pay the full rate of 6.75. So that first year, they might be saving $1,000 to $1,500 a month, depending on the loan amount. So you're talking about $12,000 to maybe $18,000 in savings the first year, and then another $6,000 to $7,000 the second year. So the buyer's going to end up saving $25,000+ in savings by the lower interest rate. It's costing the seller $20,000, but it cost them $20,000. They got the buyer, so they win. The buyer wins because they get the lower interest rate. They're saving a ton of money on that, and so it works out. And then worst case scenario, after 3 years, the buyer's interest rate just goes to the 6.75 that they were getting anyways. Best case scenario is interest rates go down, so they refinance and they get to keep a lower interest rate forever. So the first 2 years, they got a really low rate, and then they refinance into a better rate for the remainder of their term. So it's just a way to attract potentially more buyers because they can save more money. But get with our lending team. Get with someone from 21st Century Lending. They can go over that in more detail. But that's another option for you to try to get some stuff going.
Martin had a question.
Go ahead.
How do we get agents to role play listing presentation on a one-on-one Tuesday through Friday, 1 day a week at 7 or 7:30?
Put your number in the chat box, and if anyone wants to role play their listing presentation, reach out to Martin, which I would recommend. All right, there you go. All right, questions, other questions on what we went over today? A lot of people asking about the golden ruler training. I think Kiana posted that, or if not, I'm sure we have that somewhere.
Robert, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Would it
Let me
be a
grab
good
those scripts.
idea? Would it be a good idea to ask the seller to hire an appraiser when they want to overprice the property?
Yeah, I would. That's what I just mentioned.
Oh,
You know,
okay,
yeah,
thank you.
get an appraisal done. You know, I mean, you could do it either after the listing is not selling and say, hey, look, we're going to get an appraisal done. We're going to get an appraisal done to see if how well we are priced. You could do that. Or you could just get it from the get-go. You know, they say, no, Monica, we want to list it at 900,000, and you're swearing up and down it's 850. You could say, look, before we even market it, why don't we get a price reduction? I mean, I'm sorry, not a price reduction. Why don't we get an appraisal done?
Well, I
And
guess
then,
either or. So if we want
and
to
then
do
we can see what it's really going to sell
so check
for.
the box. So you have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I just posted in the chat box the Tim Rowan script, which is the 4 things the market will tell us about price. I also put the price reduction scripts in there. And then here's the other stuff, which is other ideas I can do to get the household other than lowering the price. So I just put 3 things in chat box. There's a couple of scripts. There's a breakdown of some different things. So all the stuff we went over in terms of that stuff is in the chat box. Any recommendations on staging? I mean, staging helps. I mean, they've done studies on that, but it just depends on the property. Sometimes staging can be great, but if the property's vacant, sometimes staging kind of gets in the way because it makes the property look smaller. So sometimes if you have a vacant property with a lot of wide open space, sometimes it's actually beneficial to just leave it wide open. Okay. But if you can get a good stager that, can get creative to make the house look good, especially if it, cosmetically might need some stuff, then that can help as well. Virtual staging is always another option. But yeah, so you could do that. But you got to the reason you got to think about it is because of the cost. So it's going to cost you money, and chances are you're not going to get the seller to pay for it. So yeah, AI does a great virtual staging, but staging can help. So if you have a property that's needs some love and care, then staging might be the way to get you to cover up some of those messes. I mean, who amongst us hasn't thrown a rug over a spot on the floor you didn't want the potential buyer to see? So, rug comes with the house, by the way. Please don't lift it up. So staging can sometimes cover up some of that stuff, but it's expensive. It's very expensive. All right. Other questions on what we went over today? All right. Was this helpful? Did we get a couple things out of this that might help out with our listings? Yes, no?
Yes.
All right. All right.
Thank
We
you,
got one.
Robert.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Robert.
You know, Robert, what about reverse prospecting on the CRMLS?
Yeah, I put that on there as well. I mean, I just kind of highlighted the people that have seen it. You could make sure you're contacting them, but yeah, go through the MLS, reach out to agents who have done some business in the area. Yeah, it's another great idea. And just let them see if they have a buyer now that it's a lower price. Yeah, another great idea. All right, very good. You're welcome.
Good job, Robert.